Steve Shrybman, you mentioned this is part of seems to be part of a bigger strategy. Where is this bigger, what's driving the bigger strategies? Is this something that was discussed in Montebello, for instance, a couple of summers ago? Is it deeper than that?
Well, I mean, I think the essential framework that we see being implemented through these interprovincial agreements is the framework delineated in the WTO services and investment provisions, and in particular in the services and investment provisions of NAFTA. Federal governments entered into international agreements that are about far more than trade, because they're about services and investment, which in the Canadian federal context means provincial and municipal regulation. That's where services, waste management services, virtually any service that's provided in society is regulated at the provincial level in Canada. The feds don't have the constitutional authority to impose those obligations on provincial governments, so they needed a mechanism to get there. And the mechanism is getting the provinces themselves to sign on to enforceable agreements that adopt these same principles. So the framework is delineated in international trade agreements that now don't, as a matter of law, bind the provinces. So the federal government's obligation under these agreements is to find a way to hook the provinces in, and that's what the AIT and these interprovincial agreements are about in our view.
Why do you think they're talking about labor mobility as opposed to the real agenda here?
I think it justifies, and it is a matter of spin, to the notion that there's labor mobility impediments in Canada. It would strike most Canadians as offensive. There isn't. Canadians are free to work wherever they want, and the 20% of Canadians who work in professions or trades that are regulated or certified, if you will, the problems amongst jurisdictions have been sorted out in the last 15 years. The real labor mobility issues in Canada have to do with foreign labor coming into Canada and not having their skills recognized. So there are huge labor force development issues in our country. These discussions aren't dealing with those. And I would say it's a 15-year-old decision, but it was Mr. Axworthy under a previous federal government. The devolution of labor market issues to provincial realms, in hindsight, in the global kind of world we live in today, was a catastrophically foolish decision, one that should be revisited. But the labor mobility justifications for TILMA-type agreements and the agreements on internal trade are simply spin and window dressing to justify the effort, which has more to do with corporate rights to the public realm than it has to do with labor mobility.